What if the way you've been telling your life story reveals the secret to what is holding you back? Stories play an integral part in how we see not only ourselves, but the whole world. Stories are more than just an important part of communication. They also reveal hidden aspects of our inner talk, which can either support us or end up holding us back from the very things we want most in life, without us even realizing it. Join author, mindset coach, and award-winning singer-songwriter Carrie Rowan on her show, Look for the Good, every Monday at 5 a.m. and 5 p.m. when she shares nuggets of wisdom from her internationally best-selling book, Tell a New Story, 5 Simple Steps to Release Your Negative Stories and Bring Joy to Your Life. Carrie's powerful stories and compelling guests will empower you to change how you look at your own life while giving you some powerful tools and tips you can use every day to help you feel better and move yourself closer to the life you've been longing to live.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Look for the Good. I'm your host, Carrie Rowan, and I'm so excited to be with you here today. We're on syndicated Dream Vision 7 radio every Monday at 5 a.m. and 5 p.m. You can listen online on your mobile device, in your car, or ask Alexa to play Dream Vision 7 radio. To learn more and for a full schedule, go to dreamvision7radio.com and evolve with us as we unite humankind in universal love. And thank you, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Look for the Good. And I'm so excited to have you here today with my special guest. Hello, Patricia. How are you?
I'm doing fine, Carrie. Thanks for having me on today.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining us. And we're going to talk. This is just going to be a really great talk. I'm super excited about it. I'm going to tell you a little bit about her. And I love what we're talking about today, because today we're talking about a very unique topic. We're talking about how do we turn caregiving? Because we as women are so good at caregiving, right? We're so good at giving to everybody else. How do we turn caregiving into self-care? And really, it is an art. And we're going to talk a lot about this. And I can't wait to share some of Patricia's stories with you, because she's got some incredible aha moments to share. And before we get started, let me tell you a little bit about her. So Patricia Roberts is a go-to resource for parents, media outlets, employers, and others wanting to learn about strategies to avoid the crushing weight of student loan debt. She's the author of Route 529, A Parent's Guide to Saving for College and Career Training with 529 Plans. She's the Chief Operating Officer at Gift of College, Inc. and the proud mom of a recent debt-free grad. Congratulations. It's the only way to graduate, right?
Absolutely. If possible.
If possible, right? That's the thing too. I mean, I think it's a situation that a lot of parents find themselves in, right? They start saving, but they really don't know how much. And, just having somebody who graduated in May, it is costly, and that cost keeps going up and up. And that's why I love what you do, because I love how this whole thing was born out of your personal experiences. And that's truly, I think, where the best businesses come from.
Yeah, that's right. I have a close personal connection to the topic of student loan debt and also the topic of saving for college, as well as attempting to achieve self-care. So we've got a lot to talk about today.
Yes, we do. We certainly do. So let's get into it. I'd love for you to share a little bit about your story. Like, how did this become such a passionate issue for you? I love hearing people's backstories. Of course, I'm all about the story. So share that with us. I think the listeners will really get a lot out of that.
Absolutely. So by way of background, I grew up in a very low income family as a result of my father disappearing when I was 10 years old. He drove off one day and did not come back. So he left my mom with 4 children, one of which is developmentally disabled, and a home about to go into foreclosure, cars about to be repossessed. So we spiraled from an average way of living to really poverty and without a home for a while. So the family bounced back eventually. My mom was able to find work as a domestic laborer and pulled enough money together to keep us afloat. But I really didn't have any opportunity to plan ahead for college. And in fact, my high school guidance counselor strongly encouraged me to stick with my waitressing job and not pursue any form of higher education due to the fragile state of my family, and it was fragile, and due to cost. My mom would have nothing of it. She absolutely insisted that I go and that we find a way, and we did find a way. I ended up working multiple jobs while an undergraduate, sending money home. So just the opposite of what my roommate in the dorm was doing. She was getting a check in the mail. I was sending money home,
Oh,
but we made it work. So first of all, I would say I have a huge appreciation for higher education, having almost missed the opportunity to pursue it. And I know, the many doors it allowed me to open, and how I came back to my mom and that community in which I grew up, and was much more empowered as a result of having that degree. And eventually, long after I paid back all the student loans I had to take out, etc., I was able to purchase a home for my mom and my brother, which was probably one of the proudest moments in my life. I could have done none of that, Carrie, if I had just stuck with the waitressing job. So working full-time, multiple jobs, got through the undergrad. 6 or 8 years later, I pursued a graduate degree at night, also while working full-time. But those two forms of education really left me with a tremendous amount of student loan debt. I didn't have really any financial awareness about how much debt I should be assuming. I knew I needed to do something to sort of lift myself and my family out of the circumstances we were in. And I really thought education was the best way. So I didn't pay particular attention to what I was borrowing, but I wound up having to pay back probably over $75,000 in student loan debt. And when my son arrived in my life, his father and I had over $100,000 in debt. So my passion for this has come out of, knowing how awful it feels to spend 20 years repaying the cost of higher education, and also comes out of the fact that I set a vision to have a better outcome for my child. And even though we had no idea once he arrived how we were going to do this, we started saving, Carrie, a little at a time from our paychecks into a 529 college savings plan. And as you mentioned in the intro, my son did recently, last year, graduate debt-free from his university. So I'm on a mission to let individuals know that there is a way to avoid student loan debt by planning ahead, and by also making sensible choices when it comes to selecting the institution to attend. And my background ties me very closely to it. So when I'm in employer settings, talking to employers about how they can help employees save for college and avoid student loan debt, I'm really speaking from the heart, because that's exactly how I did it. I did it a little at a time from my paycheck. And I've had the experience as a borrower, as a saver, and now as a proud mom of a grad. So I feel like I've got the professional expertise of working with these plans for 25 years, coupled with that personal experience, which I think is really valuable for people to hear. Someone who's
Absolutely.
done it. Someone
Yes, who so passionately lived it and made it your goal to make education. It's funny because my father brought us up with that saying, like, education is absolutely the number one most important thing you can do. So I grew up with that value as well. But then it's like, okay, that's great. How do I do it? Right. And so I love that you lived all that firsthand, because like I said before, I feel like that's where the passion comes from. That's why I do what I do as well, and why we write books about it, because we feel so passionate. And then we want to take that expertise that we've learned and all that knowledge that we've acquired, and we want to share that with other people. So I love that you're of service to others to help them, benefit from the hard lessons that you had to learn along the way. And that's super powerful.
Yeah, it definitely is. I dedicated the book that I wrote during the pandemic to my mom, who's no longer with us. And my son, who's the recent grad, wrote the foreword to it. And he writes about what it felt like growing up in a family where he knew his parents were paying back a tremendous amount of student loan debt, but also saving for him and making that a priority. And he really learned a tremendous amount through the process, and has a tremendous appreciation for what we were able to give to him. And again, not just the money we saved. He did get a merit scholarship in part, and he did make a sensible decision about which school to attend. He didn't pursue a dream school that was unaffordable, but rather kept reason in the driver's seat as he thought through how to spend down what we had diligently saved. And it all worked out. So I'm very proud of that. And I hope to be helping many, many others.
I love that because it's hard to instill that in somebody, appreciation for something and the value of something. And so I love that he's had the contrast of what your experience was to his experience, and it made him feel lucky and appreciative. And I feel like that's one of the best things that you can teach kids how to be, and they can learn to look around them and say, "Hey, my mom and dad really sacrificed their lives for me." And I love that he wrote the foreword of your book. I didn't realize that. Oh my
You
gosh.
did, Carrie. I want to make sure you have a copy of it. But I was thinking, gee, what personal finance author should I get? I was starting to think, like, who should I be approaching? And then I'm like, this is a guide for parents and other adults who have future students in their life. Why not hear the perspective from a student, from a child, and
Hmm.
what he recalls through the process, what he learned through the process, how little steps can really result in something quite significant. Small, consistent steps. He knows that. And he even says, I believe he says in the forward, he's applied that to other situations, like big projects in school, right? How do you
Hmm.
back into, what the end goal is? How do you back into getting there? Small, consistent steps, some planning, right?
Absolutely.
I love his perspective, and I'm really grateful that he contributed to it.
I love that. It makes the book even more special. It's really a family affair. And I love what he just said because I teach that to clients all the time, right? And I know you probably do too. It's those tiny little efforts that you make. You don't think it's much, even if it's $100 a month or $200 a month in terms of saving for college. But even if it's just stepping out into something that you didn't think you could do, just those tiny little steps every single day. And then you look back and you go, oh, wow, I'm a year into this. And look how far I've come. And so I love that. And it's a great analogy for anything like your son had applied to his college work. Anything that you want to do in life, just take those short little steps. And before you know it, you're going to be a lot further than you ever thought you could.
I think that's right. And the other thing your listeners should know is getting the account open is the most critical first step. Never too early to get started, never too late, in my view. But
Hmm.
getting it open, contributing what you can on an automatic basis. And even if it's considerably less than the amounts you gave as an example, what's important is that you're starting the process, because that's where most people get tripped up. And what's
Hmm.
also important is that you share with others what you're doing, because there are many people in your life. If you think about it, there are 18 birthdays and 18 holidays at least between birth and higher education. And I bet there are 5 or 10 or more people in your life that want to give a gift to your child. So if you let those people know that you appreciate their generosity, but you really don't need another stuffed animal or another outfit that's going to be outgrown, and instead, even if they put $25 or $50 in for each of those milestones, could
Mm.
really have a community, a circle of support helping to get your child there. And I bet people would appreciate knowing that they're giving to something that's not going to be outgrown, that's not going to wind up in a yard sale or I don't know, anywhere,
A
somewhere that
thrift shop.
exactly, a landfill even. So I suggest people do get started as soon as they can and let others know that they're on a journey to save. And I bet you there are others that would gladly join you, maybe buy a smaller, more modest gift and contribute to the college savings account. And then they'll have a stake in your child's future, which is kind of exciting.
It is exciting. I love that concept because think about that. Like you said, I mean, gifts, we can't fit anything else in the house. So, and this is something that people, I think, like you said, would be excited to be a part of and know that they can make a difference in a child's life, and knowing how important education is. I just love that concept of, somehow getting everybody else, I feel like all the grandparents, need to be involved.
Yeah, absolutely. And grandparents often, if they couldn't help their own children to achieve higher education, they feel all the more interested in helping the grandchildren. Or if they did help their
Hmm.
children, it's actually a gift that a grandparent can give that benefits both their adult child and their grandchild, right? It takes a
Right?
little bit of stress off of the adult child, and then it benefits that grandchild. And I think it's a wonderful thing. They can either contribute to an account that the adult child has established for the beneficiary, or they can open their own. Some grandparents open their own 529 account. They
Hmm.
want to either have it as a surprise or they want to have something separate. They want to be in control of it. That's fine too. So either they can give a gift to an existing account or open their own. You can have multiple accounts and with the cost of
Hmm.
education, you cannot have enough money, it seems, to cover the
It's
cost.
It's so true. It's just such, and the cost keeps going up and up. And like you mentioned, I think schools vary, but even a small school that my daughter went to around here was extremely expensive. So yeah, absolutely. I love that because it becomes this multi-generational contribution, right? It becomes this multi-generational giving. And I feel like it's just a great legacy that you're leaving behind that generations to come could follow. Like, hey, yeah, my grandparents gave to my great great grandmother, and they have these stories they could tell about it. And I just love that could be a new tradition that you pass down in your family.
I love it. And I want to make sure your listeners know 529 plans, they're called college savings plans, but they can be used for a wide range of educational experiences post-secondary. So it's not
Hmm.
just four-year traditional colleges as we think of them, but trade and technical school. Registered apprenticeships, you can pay for costs associated with those with a 529.
Mm.
Graduate and professional studies, everything from cosmetology school to dental school. I mean, there are so many forms of education. So if parents are reluctant because they're not certain their child will attend college, I bet most every child is going to pursue some form of post-secondary education, and these plans can really help.
And I love how the laws have changed to adapt to changing times,
Yes.
right? Like I remember when it was only higher education, and then they changed the rule because I know it applied to us. My daughter went to a private college, or I'm sorry, it wasn't college; it was private high school. But she needed to go. She needed this special schooling that they had, and I was able to take money out of her 529 to cover the expense of that, which was fabulous. I love that.
Yeah, that is true. These plans can be used for K to 12 tuition only.
Hmm.
Wouldn't be room and board if the child was living away, but certainly the tuition could be covered by the 529 plan. And I think that's a good enhancement to the programs. And you mentioned special needs. 529 plans can also be used when a child is pursuing education for any special needs services that they may have, a need for. So
Hmm.
529 plans can cover those as well. So it's tuition fees, room and board, books and supplies, even computers, and special needs services if a child has those as well. And that could be any number of things that could help them to achieve the education that they're pursuing.
Hmm.
That's sometimes overlooked, that is included as an eligible expense.
And that's huge. I don't think a lot of people know that. And I found that a lot of my friends didn't even know about the K through 12 stipulation of that law. So I think there's a lot of flexibility with it. And what I love most is the pre-tax benefits, right? Or the non-taxable benefits when you take that money out.
Right. So the account, once you've contributed your after-tax dollars, so you've earned the money, you've contributed it to the account. When those accounts grow in value, they are not being taxed along the way, unlike your bank savings accounts or
Hmm.
your brokerage accounts. You get those annual tax statements every year. The 529, the earnings on the account are not taxed while they're in the account, and they are never taxed when withdrawn to use for that wide range of educational expenses. So I think that's a wonderful benefit. And then many states, in addition to that wonderful federal benefit of tax-free growth, tax-free withdrawals, have state tax deductions annually for 529 college savings plans. So
Mm.
37 states allow their residents to take a tax deduction or get a tax credit, depending on the state, for their contributions to incent families to save. And I think that's great too.
Love that. I love that. It's a win-win, right? And the other thing I love about them in my family is that you can share amongst siblings. So like say somebody used all theirs, they had a little bit left, they were done with their program, you can transfer it and use it for the other child as well.
That's right. You are very familiar with these plans, Carrie. I know you've used them. Yes, you can certainly change the beneficiary. All or part of the account could be used for a member of the family of the original beneficiary. And that's a really broad definition. It's not just siblings. It could be step siblings as well. It could be an
Ooh.
aunt or uncle. It could be you as the parent who opened the account. You are a member of the family of your child.
Hmm.
So parents, if there's money left over, or if parents were to need it along the way, maybe they need some retooling for their job due to changes in their industry or whatever the case
Hmm.
may they too can use an account that they've set up as long as they're related to the individual for whom they establish the account.
Absolutely. Love that. Love that. Well, don't go anywhere. We're going to be right back with Patricia Roberts with more great information. And we're going to talk a little bit more about her stories when we come back. Stay tuned. Hello, welcome back to Look for the Good. And I'm so excited to be back with Patricia Roberts. We're getting some incredible information. I wanted her to elaborate a little bit, and I'm sure you're probably curious, listeners, as well, about the story that you started telling us about your dad and how he left, and you were what, 10 years old, such a tender age. And how did that affect you? Tell us that story about how you became a caretaker at that tender age.
Sure. So as I had mentioned, my father really was a missing person for many years. He drove off to work one morning and did not return. And my mom found herself in a situation that she was not expecting. She had no insight into the family finances. My father was insisted that she be a housekeeper, homemaker, not work. This was the 1970s, by the way. So here she is, a 1960s housewife, really wanted to use some of the skills she had developed as a former secretary and bookkeeper. She wanted to use those skills professionally, but he really wanted her home with the 4 children. So she did that, but she had no money in her name and really no vision into what the financial health of the family was. So soon after my father disappeared, we quickly learned that the house would no longer be ours and many other changes were about to come. And everyone was in pretty much of a fragile state. I was the youngest child, but for whatever reason, I sort of stepped into a leadership role to help everyone through. My 3 older siblings and my mom. My mom suffered a stroke sometime after my father left. I don't know exactly how many months it was, but she was in critical care for quite a while, and then eventually got herself back to health. But I was the one, and I know there's often one in every family who sort of assumes that leadership role, who doesn't rock the boat, but sort of tries to keep everything as smooth as possible when things are sort of rocky. And that was me. And really, that role has never been taken away from me. I have assumed it right through the end of my mom's life and helping her out, helping my one brother who has some special needs, and helping so many others. It's just something that became a part of me.
That's beautiful. I love that. And, we step into those roles, and that was your role, which you obviously did so gracefully. And that must have been so hard because you yourself being so young and a child, and then your mom being sick, and there's so many aspects of that. And I'm sure you had some lingering stories and beliefs that you adopted at that, because you just kind of probably have to tell yourself, hey, I'm not going to have any needs, or I'm not going to have any issues because I have to be the one to step up. I got to be the grown up, the big girl here. Um, did you later have to go back and find any stories that you had to turn around for yourself to be where you are today?
I certainly examined much of what happened. I don't remember it feeling traumatic at the time. I was 10 years old. I just sort of stepped into the role and took care of whatever needed to be taken care of. But I think in looking back and even looking at myself today, I think I became sort of hyper vigilant, really aware of anything that was going on or could possibly go wrong in a situation. Because when something happens so suddenly, right, a disappearing person and a change of circumstances so suddenly, I think you believe that things can change quite rapidly. And I have to remind myself, and my mom was always very good at teaching us that no matter what situation we would be in the future, from a relationship standpoint, to always, always, always have money in our own name, and to
Mm.
always have things that could never be taken away from us.
Hmm.
And education was one of those attributes that she felt so strongly about. She didn't have it. She didn't have education after high school. She was one of 8 children in an immigrant family, and college was not a possibility. So she didn't have education. She didn't have money in her own name. I don't know if you know, Carrie, but in the 1970s, at least at the time my mom was going through the circumstances, women did not have money in their own name, and they couldn't have credit in their own name either. So that was something that she taught us, is to be sure to be independent, no matter who we aligned ourselves with, and to always know what is going on in terms of financial situations if you are aligned with others. So yeah, that's something that I definitely took away from my childhood, and something that has helped me as an adult, and something I remind myself when I think something could happen quite suddenly, as it did when I was a child. I remind myself I'm in a much stronger position than my mom was ever in, because I do have education, I do have money in my name. No matter what relationship I've been in through the years, I've always been certain, even when I combine money for various purposes, was always certain to have money set aside in my own name. And that always made me feel more confident.
It's a great lesson, right, to give your young girls. And look at how it served you to this day, right? Because you're in this industry and you're helping others get that education, the thing that you most valued, and the thing that nobody can ever take away from you. I love looking at it from that perspective. I think that's really powerful. Because nowadays I feel like some of the younger generation, they don't necessarily value it because they think that everybody has it, but not everybody does have that. Not everybody has higher education. Still, not everybody has access to that. So I think being able to have that and appreciate what you have is a really, really, really powerful lesson to pass on to the next generation. And I love that your son is already appreciating that. It's really powerful.
Absolutely. And I will say, Carrie, all of that caregiving, ultimately, well, it can be exhausting and did exhaust me at times through the years. I really learned a tremendous amount through the process, and realized the epiphany I had not so long ago. I wish I had had it much sooner, but the epiphany I had was that I have everything I need to take care of myself as well as others. And that's something I really had never thought about before. I'd always, always, always put myself on the back burner. I was really on the sidelines of my life in many ways. And when I started to think about how I was feeling, I realized all the things I've done for others really developed exceptional skills in me that I could ultimately apply to myself. So my diligence in caring for my mom, and caring for my brother, and caring for my son as a parent, and others in my life, that level of diligence, the follow through, the simple steps that I take every time, I never would drop the ball for anyone else. I know you probably feel the same way in your own life, but I often was dropping it for myself. So I learned that that level of diligence and commitment could be something that I apply to my own situation. The empathy that I certainly shared with others could be shared with myself in a kind way, right? Certainly be less hard on myself and more understanding, more patient. How patient I was through the years with everything that was changing and evolving in my family's life, and with all the different needs that arose through those circumstances. I've got the patience, I've got the diligence, I've got the capability to really apply that to me. And that's what I have begun doing. And it feels so good.
I love that. That's a huge lesson, because I'm not sure everybody makes that shift. Not sure everybody, there is so much lesson in there. All the lessons that life gives us. And then that being able to turn it towards yourself and give it back to yourselves, because a lot of times, especially in this day and age, we live in this externally focused world. People are looking to get that validation, to get that care, to get that love from outside of themselves. And when you can take all those lessons and turn it around and give it back to yourself and have that self-compassion, that is, I think, one of the hugest lessons in life. And you're just a beautiful living example of this for everybody that you interact with, and also your son, who sees that, look at all these amazing things that my mom's done, even though the circumstances were less than ideal, that she was handed, but you were able to turn it all around. I think that's really a beautiful story.
I think so too. And I do think there's a tremendous amount of modeling we can do for our children, and running ourselves down and not taking care of ourselves is not exceptional modeling, even if it involves going the extra mile for your child. You being worn down is not a great example. I didn't have a great example with my mom. She really just threw herself in, the service of her children. That was the role that she played. And, I see now how appreciative my son is in seeing me pursue some of my passions, take some time for myself. It's a great example for him to see
Hmm.
me stepping away at times or stepping off the sidelines and into the light, thinking about what I'd like to do, pressing the pause button when there are still many people that call on me for care or for needs,
Hmm.
especially my brother. I'm a long distance caregiver for him. Taking a deep breath, not necessarily responding right away to every issue that transpires, but rather giving it a little time to sit, giving myself a little bit of time, and also allowing him and his local caregivers to sort of maybe think through some solutions on their own before I come to the rescue. So
Hmm.
it's good modeling for my son. It's certainly allowing me to feel freer and lighter, and very much feel like I am an active part of my own life and that I can be a priority. I think
Oh,
that's my word for this year. I decided on
is
priority.
it? Is that your word?
Yes,
I
yes.
love it. That's a fabulous word for yourself. Priority. I think I love that concept of having an annual word for yourself. And then just reminding you, mine is consistency. I have it over there on my wall. It's good. It just keeps you focused, right? It's like setting that intention out into the universe, and that priority, making yourself a priority. And there's so many women that come to me and work with me, and I'm sure you see the same thing, that don't make themselves a priority. And then as I feel like it catches up with you over time, right? Either health or emotionally. And then there comes a point where you have to make yourself a priority. You just do.
I
Your
agree.
body demands it, right?
Yeah. And what's great about the word priority and me is that the first two letters are my initials, PR. So when I write out the word priority for the year and maybe years to come, I put the PR in caps, and it reminds me even further that I can be first at times, right? I
Mm,
can be at the start of whatever it is, including that particular word. So I've had a little fun with it, recognizing there's I don't know, an initial.
I love it. It is your word. It's your
It's my
word.
word. I'm
It's
owning
your
it.
word.
My word. Totally mine.
I love that. I think I'm going to have to choose creativity next time for this
Oh,
PR.
go girl.
So I can have my initials at the top. I love that. Well, we're talking about making changes and being able to switch in life. And I love the concept of the pivot. And you and I spoke a little bit about that. Being able to pivot, and certainly you launching your book and me launching my book over the pandemic, right? Not what we expected to do. But if you were to give somebody some advice on how do you pivot yourself so quickly, the first time you had a pivot was not by choice. And so now you tend to do pivots by choice, right? Because we have to, because of circumstances. But you seem to be an expert in them. So share something with us about some of the pivots in your life.
Hmm. Well, some of the ones we've talked about were from student loan borrower to saving
Right?
my
Love it.
son. I've pivoted from I am a lawyer. I've pivoted to the business side of these 529 plans. I first began working on them from a legal perspective, getting the prospectuses written up about them. And then I moved to the business side, which has been exciting. Pivoting from an individual, working with these plans day to day to a book author, right? During the pandemic, finding that extra time on my hands. I have found that project of writing this book to be one of the most satisfying things I've ever done. And I never expected I would do it. And, I talked about sort of stepping off of the sidelines in terms of my own self-care. Talk about stepping off of the sidelines, Carrie, into the light. I mean, the number of interviews I've had and podcasts I've been on, or television interviews. I was on CNBC. I've been on Good Morning America. I've been in print publications a lot. It's really satisfying. I mean, it's a new skill set. It's nothing I've been trained on in particular, but I think since I'm speaking from the heart on a topic that I am so personally familiar with, this particular pivot has gone so well and so smoothly. And it was one that was an unplanned pivot, I'll tell you that. But I'm really glad to have done it. And I'm sure you're feeling the same way about some of the things you've done recently.
Absolutely. And the book being a huge one, because that was, stepping out of our comfort zone, right? Stepping into something we knew. I mean, I always knew that I was going to write a book at some point as an English major, but I was in corporate America as well. So, but making that step and then pivoting into all these cool things that kind of parlay you right into the next level of your life. I mean, and I feel like probably like you, like my book is the culmination of all of my life's work. It's all of my life experiences, everything I've studied for many years. My music is in there. I've created meditation. So it's really just it's sort of a little microcosm, if you will, of our whole entire lives in that, 213 pages or however long yours is.
I really love it. And I do love some of the self-care strategies I had to employ to get this book done. So
Mhm.
one of the things I do, I follow Mel Robbins, and
I
I
love Mel Robbins.
love her. I actually did a mastermind course with her back in 2018 and had the opportunity to meet her several times. And I'm still in touch with some of the people from that course. But one of the things I do is to certainly get out of bed 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, even when I don't feel like it. So I start every day with some good habits, which have been extremely helpful. Not sleeping with the phone next to the bed, not getting up and looking, falling down that rabbit hole
Hmm.
of emails and such, others' needs, right? First thing, I just keep the electronics off. I do the high five. She's written that book. I have it right here on my desk. The
I
high
love
five.
that.
I do the high five in the mirror. I look at myself with love and give myself a high five first thing in the morning versus maybe looking at myself with disdain. Oh, you look so tired, or oh, sort of dreading something about the day ahead. No, I started with something positive and then some meditation as well. So I put those strategies in place while I was writing the book during the pandemic, and it really kept me moving forward. And I remember Mel suggesting in one of her podcasts that there was this website called, I think it was called 750words.com or something. She suggested maybe it was 750 or 150, I don't know, but certain number of words a day, just get them written, no matter what they are.
Mm.
Stream of consciousness, don't stop and edit, but just write. And I
Mhm.
followed that and I got this book done. I was so proud to do it and so glad I did. So I wasn't baking sourdough bread or learning to crochet or something, but this was my thing. And I'm so
Right.
happy about it. It
That's
really
wonderful.
does fill my cup. I feel
That
so happy.
I love that. Hey, everybody, don't go anywhere. We're going to be back. We're going to have a word from a sponsor. Don't go anywhere. Stay tuned.
Perfect.
Welcome back, everybody, to Look for the Good. And I'm here with Patricia Roberts. We're talking about her writing her book. And she was just sharing with us how that really filled her cup. It was one of the most satisfying things she ever did for herself, because it is something that we really do for ourselves. Do you agree with that? Writing your book is an exercise in self-care in a lot of ways.
Yes, absolutely. An exercise in self-care. And the bonus with respect to this particular book, and I think things that you've written as well, Carrie, is that it's in the service of others as well. So the bonus of doing for others while also doing for yourself. I found it so satisfying and I'm so glad. I mean, my goal in writing Route 529 was to educate and inspire other parents to have better outcomes when it comes to pursuing higher education and paying for the cost of it. It's the second largest investment, typically after home purchase, that a family will ever make. And having some strategies around pursuing it and pursuing it in the most financially effective way, I think is extremely useful.
So powerful. And the benefit that you get out of it too, and just knowing that you did it responsibly and that you're not carrying this massive, albatross around your neck for the child and also for yourself, taking out loans. And I just think it's a really, really great way. And it's going to make you feel so good and so confident when you look at that statement and say, wow, I started this for my child. Maybe you start it when they're born. I don't know. It's never, like you said, it's never too soon. It's never too late. I love that saying.
Yeah, and people can actually open the account before a child arrives, name themselves as both the account owner and the beneficiary. And then, since they'll be a member of the family of that new beneficiary, just simply change the beneficiary to the child's name. Upon their arrival, you'll have their date of birth, you'll soon have their social security number, and you're good to go. And one of the benefits of getting an account set up that early, not only the ability for years of compound growth, but it gives friends and family an opportunity for both a baby shower and a welcome to the world gift to immediately know that this is something that you're making a priority, and give them the opportunity to make some contributions to the account. So having it open, get very busy after the child arrives, you know that.
Yes.
But having it open beforehand just makes it so much easier.
Absolutely. And I love your concept of getting everybody involved, it takes a village, is just a really beautiful thing to involve all the family members. And then they can feel like they're contributing as well. It's a nice, nice way to have them invest and give their love and show their love to this child in a multitude of ways. That's a really beautiful thing. Well, this has been amazing having you on. I feel like my listeners have learned so much, and you sharing your personal story, it was so touching. And where can they find your book? This book is amazing. Where can they get it?
Okay, so my book, Route 529, A Parent's Guide to Saving for College, is available on Amazon. And if people want to follow what I'm doing, I'm on LinkedIn a lot. If you look for Patricia Roberts and Gift of College, I'm there as well.
I love that. Yeah. So find her on LinkedIn, and yeah, definitely get that copy of the book, because first of all, I have to read what your son wrote because that's so compelling and I want to know that. But there's so many great tips and tools in there. And there's a reason she's been on CNBC and Good Morning America and all these other places, because she's a wealth of information, and you deliver it in such a way that is so understandable to everybody. And it's from the heart, like you said. I mean, and I think that's really a beautiful thing.
Absolutely. And for those who would love their employer to start helping with 529, that's another thing I can help with. I can help you, speak to your employer about it, or get me in to talk to them. I'd be glad to do so, because employers are recognizing the financial stress individuals are under, not only with student loan debt, but with saving to avoid it. And if you let that be in their bonnet, you just may wind up with not only friends and family contributing to your account, but your employer as well. So I just want to recognize that is something that you could potentially pursue.
Oh, I love that. So sort of kind of like a 401k where they might make a sort of a match to that. Wow, that is fabulous. This plan has come so far since I first started investing with my daughters. And let me tell you, it's one of the best things we ever did. So I'm so glad you came on to share with us today, Patricia. Thank you so much for spending time with us today here on Look for the Good.
Thank you, Carrie. I appreciate any time I could spend with you, and this was very enjoyable. Thank you.
Lovely. Thanks for coming on. And remember, everybody, it's never too late to live your best story. Take care. Be well.
Thanks for tuning in to Look for the Good with your host, Carrie Rowan, best-selling author and mindset coach. Join us every Monday at 5 a.m. and 5 p.m. right here at Dream Vision 7 Radio Network. If you weren't able to catch an episode, no worries. Just visit our website to find all the archived episodes of Look for the Good on demand, so you don't miss a thing. And remember, it's never too late to live your best story. For additional resources or to find out about how you can work with Carrie directly, visit carrierowan.com for more details.